Hey, welcome back. This is going to be another new tutorial series, and this one's going to be on the context menu support, which was added to Neos quite recently. This will be 3 parts, I think. It might turn into 13 parts, although hopefully not. UIX was quite a long series. And we're going to be going over an introduction, which will cover the components today. Part 2 will be covering some examples using those components, and Part 3 will be covering logics. There will be a cliffhanger after Part 2, and that's because we're waiting for logic support to be added, which will enable you to use the context menu features with logics. There are some ways around this right now, using things like fire on change and fire on true. I don't advise them, as logics nodes are coming, which will be a lot better. If you just wait a week or two, they'll be right there for you. You can get a lot done with the components, and that's what I'll be showing you in part 2. But let's go ahead and get started with an introduction on what's going on. So I'm going to pivot into Smooth POV, and I'm going to start with an example. And I also want to start with an explanation of what's going on here, and that is that the context menus, the first thing to understand is that they can be at different levels within the world. So you can have an avatar level context menu, which is where, turning off hats, scarves, changing colors, etc. might be useful. You can have an object level context menu, which is sort of, you're holding a gun, maybe change fire mode, maybe it's a multi-tool, you can change the tool. And you can also have a sort of world or game mode level context menu. It might be things like low graphic mode, or turning on mirrors, turning off mirrors, turning on lights, etc. The example here to get you introduced to this is an object level one. What I have here is a simple material. I'll actually be building this in part 2, maybe in part 1, who knows, we'll see. If I go ahead and grab, first of all, without this being grabbed, I have nothing on my context menu that's out of the ordinary. This is all standard context menu stuff. But if I go ahead and grab this object, and I want to actually make sure I grab it physically just so there's more room, if I open up the context menu here again, you'll see I've now got a colors option on my context menu. Sure that my hand is in view. Sometimes it's not. Here we go. So if I open up the context menu here, you'll see colors. If I go into colors, you'll see we get a submenu, and I can choose between red, blue, and green. So if I select red here, you'll see the ball goes red. If I select green, the ball goes green. If I select blue, it goes back to blue. So red, green, blue. That is all powered by the new context menu stuff, and it also has no logics in it, so it's a really good example. You can find it in my public folder. It's under the tutorials folder in tutorials, and then context menu. I'll show you that at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and take a look at those context menu components and how they work. And that'll be a good introduction. And then we'll go on to some sort of examples in part 2. Right, you'll only need a developer tooltip for this. Like I said, there is no logics functionality yet. And let's go ahead and get going. I'm going to be adding a context menu to my avatar. That's just a little bit easier right now than having to hold an object, and also shows you how to add it to your avatar. So I'm going to go ahead and inspect my wrist, open the inspector, head up to the top of my avatar. I'm going to select the root of my avatar here, which lags a little bit because we're loading a lot of components, but that's totally fine. I'm going to push star, and once star is added, this is going to create a new item I can play with. Here, I'm going to go ahead and name this context menu, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a few components. If you want to add a context menu item at the root of the context menu, what do I mean by root? I mean this is the root here. Everything here is in the root of the context menu. Then you need to add a specific component for that. And then as you descend down into sort of various submenus, you don't need that component anymore. So it's only needed at the top, or if you want a particular context menu item to be at the top. As this is the first one that we're going to be adding, we do want to add that root level item. So I'll go ahead and show you where that is. The same thing happens here with all of the components of context menus. They are in exactly the same place. So if you go to attach component, Radiant UI, context menu, you'll see the list here. Now I do want to cover a few sort of gotchas, which is do not use context menu item, only use the ones below that, so item source, submenu, and root context menu items. The ones at the top here are for the native context menu stuff, and they're not to be used for you guys. There may be a way to do that, but I haven't found it, so just stick to those 3 bottom ones and you'll be totally fine. Like I said previously, this is the root of the context menu, so I'm going to go ahead and add root context menu item. This component doesn't do much, it just asks for an item. It does all the work behind the scenes, so we need another component to talk to it. So if you go to attach component, Radiant UI, context menu, and then we add context menu item source. I know that's a mouthful, but just remember if it's got source on the end, it's the one you want. This component again looks susceptibly, or suspiciously, that's the word. It looks kind of sus. It looks suspiciously kind of simple, and that's because it is. If we go ahead and grab context menu item, you'll see context menu item appears on my tool. I can drop it into item on the root of the context menu here. And now if I de-equip my tool, always good to have no tools in your hand when you're testing this stuff, just it keeps things small and tidy, and you can find those new context menu items that you've added. Go ahead and open up my context menu here. You'll see I've now got my item. It doesn't do anything right now, but that's totally fine. We can just go ahead and play with it. Let's first of all change its name. Maybe you want to change its name to cheese will be good. Let's go ahead and change it to cheese. Now it's labeled as a cheese. We're going to go ahead and change the color. So we'll change the color to yellow. There we go. And now when I open up my context menu, you'll see there's a yellow item with cheese. That is yellow. Yeah, that is yellow with cheese. And there we go. Again, it does nothing. We just want to double check that that's appearing on camera. Cheese, cheese. Yep, that's on camera. Perfect, thank you. Having some difficulties with cameras. I mentioned it in the channel update. I'm working on some visualizations and it's sort of messing my camera setup a little bit. So if anything isn't clear, do let me know and I'll try and get it updated or provide some clarity in the comments. I'm trying to sort of hold my arm out a lot and be like, yeah, there's the context menu. We'll continue, and the options here we'll use is now Sprite. So Sprite allows you to put a picture on there. For that, you will need an assets Sprite provider, I believe. So go ahead, grab that Sprite provider and drop it into Sprite. And then you'll need a Sprite. I'm going to go ahead and grab one from my inventory. If you haven't guessed already, it's going to be a piece of cheese, because that's just me. So I'm going to go ahead and grab in this. Any image should work, just to try and keep it to an icon. So here I got a nice cheese wedge. I can put it into the Sprite provider. And now if I open up that context menu, you'll see it's now got a cheese icon. Again, it still does nothing, but we've got we've got a context menu going. Feel free to play around and customize this and come back once you're sort of ready to start doing stuff with context menus, and I'll show you what we can do. The next thing I want to do is show you how to set up the submenus. So for things like submenus, as a good example here, you'll see locomotion. So if we go into locomotion, you'll see a submenu opens, and we get to choose things like no clip, teleport, grab world, walk, etc. That's a submenu. Let's go ahead and set one of those up. To set one of those up, just on, again, this root menu item, we can go ahead and add another component. So we'll go to attach component, Radiant UI, context menu, and then context menu submenu. Again, I know it's a mouthful, but there we go. This is a little bit more complicated as it has a lot of stuff that can be used, but again, it's suspiciously simple in that once you start using it, it just starts working. So what it's looking for here is looking for an items root. This is a slot hierarchy where you're going to store your other context menu items. So what I'm going to do here is grab context menu and drop it into items root, and that's actually going to start getting us set up. So I'm going to use star here, which will create context menu child, and then on here, I'm going to go attach component, Radiant UI, context menu item source. When this is added, I'll leave it as my item for now, and then what you can see is if I open up my context menu and I go to cheese, we get a submenu that's just got my item in it. If I were to go ahead and change this to red, and then I can go ahead and rename the text here to red, and I duplicate it, and I change it to blue, and I rename this to blue. You can now see that if I go into cheese, I've got red and blue. So that's submenus for you. You can nest submenus. I don't really advise it, as you can kind of get lost if you go too many levels of detail below. You don't want to get stuck, levels below in your context menu wondering what's going on, but you can do that. To do that, just add another Radiant UI. Where are we? Context menu submenu. And again, drag this one over. There's your item root. Go star again. Here, attach component, Radiant UI, context menu item source. This one will go ahead and make pink. And then we'll leave it as my item. So now I've got cheese, and then I push, oh gee, I don't know which one. It was blue. There we go, blue, and then we're in the pink area of my item. So there we go. You can do nested. I believe you can go as low as you want, but again, please don't push it. You can get sort of lost, etc. If you want more things at the root of your context menu, as in, the root, you need to go ahead and make sure that you add root context menu item to them. To illustrate this, I'm going to take the entire setup we just made and duplicate it, and then again, open up my context menu, and now I've got two cheeses. They both work the same because I just duplicated them, but they are root level items. So again, that is the context menu item stuff. I will show you how to do stuff with them, but I did want to cover how to do it on items. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and we'll switch back to the developer tooltip. I'm going to go to, I've got two cheeses now. I'm going to go ahead, we'll have two cheeses for the rest of the video. We'll go to create new, 3D model, box. Here's a box. I'm going to go ahead, shrink it down, inspect the box, and make a sub item on the box using the star. On box child here, just going to go to attach component, Radiant UI, context menu, root context menu item, attach component, Radiant UI, context menu item source. Drag the source into root, change its color to, let's go for, I don't know, like a green now, and we'll just name this box. So with this done, I'm going to de-equip my tool to get rid of some context menu items. Without holding the box, I've got cheese, cheese, and then if I hold the box, I've now got box, cheese, cheese. Again, box does nothing, but I'm just showing you that's the way it works. That'll work with items. I believe it works with tools as well. I haven't tried it myself, but go ahead and do that right now if you like. You can go ahead and inspect our logics tip. Go up to the top of the logics tip, new child, attach component, Radiant UI, context menu, root context menu item, attach component, Radiant UI, context menu item source. We'll leave this one as defaults just for speed and brevity. Close everything out, equip my tool, and yeah, my item. So you can add this to tools, multi-tools, everything you want. If provided you're holding it, it should work. This also means you can do hats and things. Let's say you've got like a cool hat that can change color. You could add that hat to your avatar, and then when they're wearing the hat, the context menu would appear. I don't know, maybe it changes color or displays a message. You know, like those glasses you wear that display sort of LED messages. Something like that would be cool. So that is an introduction to those components. I know we didn't show you how to do anything, but that's for part 2. I'm going to go over some examples. I do want to cut here because sometimes this is enough for people to go, oh, I know how they work, and they can just launch straight into build stuff. And so I do want to leave off and give you the opportunity to go try some of that out, play around with the colors, play around with the items, take a look. And we'll join you back soon here with part 2 where we talk about items that you can make and examples. Again, no logics until part 3 though. All right, see you soon.